Geoff, how are you doing today?
I'm good, Ray. Thanks for having me on. What's going on?
Thanks for joining us. Just basking in the afterglow of a win that, as we talk about it more this week, some people are finding more and more to pick apart and make me feel like I shouldn't be happy about 1-0. So let's get first.
It kind of feels like it happened 3 weeks ago now, doesn't it? With all the time in between and all the talking that's gone on.
I know. And watching all over the weekend and everyone playing comparison game between what you saw Thursday, what you saw over the weekend, it feels like I need a game tonight, but I know that I would not be happy with the game tonight because then I would go a week and a half without Eagles football, and then I'd already feel that way come Friday.
There you go.
So I want to start, though, with something I thought I would hear about yesterday. Didn't hear about yesterday. Thought I'd hear about today by the time we got to talking with you. Still haven't. What are you hearing about the Jaylen Carter situation, and what do you expect to come from this situation?
My interpretation is it's probably not great that we still have gone this long without hearing about it. I'm sure some people are imagining, a room full of suits at the Park Ave and NFL arguing over this. I don't think that's the case. It's usually involves more investigation, more question asking, checking precedent, then examining, as they go forward, well, how do you want to handle this situation? What the NFL always does is make decisions that it feels are best suited for the NFL, obviously. And they have cracked down this year, and that started in the preseason, on taunting. They have put an emphasis on sportsmanship. And so I'm sure there's some kind of discussion of looking at precedent, but also balancing that on what kind of message they want to send going forward as they're cracking down, so to speak, or in reinforcing sportsmanship rules.
So as we get to that point, like if I anoint you, Geoff Mosher, just commissioner of the NFL in this one, where do you think you would come down on this?
Well, so let's take the context out of it. I'm just the commissioner. I'm not trying to make a statement based on our recent reinforcement of sportsmanship rules or things like that. I'm of the belief for cases like this that when you get ejected from a game, you pay the price. That is your penalty. The crime was spitting. The punishment was you don't get to play in the game. And then you can let the team handle it from there. If the team wants to impose a fine or sit them for a half of a game, let the team handle that. But that's not really how the NFL goes about it. And in fact, they've tried to take in recent years, ever since the personal conduct policy reinforcement, they don't really want teams handling personal conduct policy stuff because there was a long time there where, guys would get in trouble and the team wouldn't do anything about it because they wanted the guy to play on Sunday. So, but me personally, I feel like, I think spitting is about as reprehensible as it can be when you spit in somebody's face or eye or anything like that. So, I would certainly probably place a phone call over to Jaylen Carter and let him know that, he was ejected from the game and he is on watch for his behavior going forward. But I probably wouldn't do anything further than that, other than maybe a big fine.
Yeah, and I think precedent, I went with the Mike Florio, the Pro Football Talk story about spitting before and what we've seen in terms of this league. The fine felt like the likely outcome yesterday when we got on the air, and I was expecting the answer there. Didn't come. Expected the answer today. Still hasn't come, so we'll wait to see with that. But some of the news that we have gotten this week, another trade. Every time we talk, another trade to react to here, Geoff. Tank Bigsby, what do you make of the deal the Eagles made to land the running back?
Yeah, this one was an interesting one. I mean, giving up 2 picks for a running back who, had clearly worked his way down the pecking order there in Jacksonville, a little strange to me. Normally, I get that the Eagles have a lot of picks to work with, but I don't necessarily advocate for just trading them just because. And, usually a running back is a fungible position where you can find what you're looking for, especially for a backup running back. I realize that he has kick return abilities and will probably occupy those. We'll have to wait and see how bad the rib injury was for Will Shipley, and if that's going to put him out for a while. So I can understand the need for a backup running back, and to have someone who's talented. Bigsby's talented. He's a compact low to the ground runner. He's good for the style of run that the Eagles use, which is a lot of inside run, inside zone, duo, between the tackles running. He fits that really well. I just question why you had to give up 2 draft picks for a player like that when you have A.J. Dillon there in your room already. Now, he doesn't return kicks. I feel like even if you didn't have Will Shipley, you could probably find someone who could, but how he is aggressive, and he will make moves to fill holes. And I'm curious to see when Shipley's healthy, and if healthy, what does that mean for A.J. Dillon? What does it mean for the running back room as a whole?
That's pretty much my exact read. I was very curious that the 2 picks for me, when I feel like there's other holes for you to potentially address with this roster that we could find out, within a month, like, hey, you really need to go out and get someone. Again, not that they're high picks, but they're picks regardless. They're ammunition for you. And then his role in this offense, with a healthy Will Shipley, he doesn't exactly fit the Will Shipley role while Shipley's outside of being the kick returner, at least in my eyes.
Right, and that's why I kind of look at A.J. Dillon and say, this guy's not gotten a lot of work. I mean, he missed all last year. Was he one of those guys who was kind of on the fringe anyway at cut down, but they wanted to have a third running back? And, and the fact that they brought back Montrell Johnson to the practice squad, I believe, who's also a between the tackles runner, just makes me think that there's a corresponding move yet to be made in that room that may not be this week, but may be in a week or 2.
Well, we'll see with that one, because I think you and I are both walking down the same path with what happens with that running back room. But to take you to the other side of the ball, late last week, Zadarius Smith, the addition made there to the edge rusher room, which was already interesting to look at, given Azeez Ojulari inactive for the first game. What do you see as they continue to work with the depth at edge rusher here in the early going of the season?
Yeah, right. One of my favorite things, I'm sure you appreciate it too, all of us in the media do, is the candor that Vic Fangio speaks with, and sometimes it's funny because he just throws like cold water on things that sometimes it's like, I think fans are pretty excited about Zadarius Smith because even at his age, I mean, he had a really productive year last year being a situational pass rusher for the Lions, playing earlier in the year for the Browns. I mean, the pass rush win rate, if you're into the advanced analytics, is really good. I mean, it's a good addition. And Vic's kind of like, yeah, well, we got to see what he's got. we have to see how he fits our defense and things of that nature. It sort of reminded me of when he was asked about Adoree Jackson in training camp, and he said it's time to see what Adoree is or isn't, and he's got some things he has to learn. I mean, we're talking about a 9-year veteran here. When your coordinator says you have a lot of things to learn.
Or that teams were justified to move on from you. That was the other one, saying that.
Yeah, yes, that was. And on top of that, I didn't really watch tape of him either. So that was really interesting stuff. I mean, he made it seem like he's not real familiar with Zadarius Smith's resume, but he thinks that he does have some abilities. But he's right. Vic's edge rushers can't just come in here and rush the passer. You have to be able to drop. You don't have to be great at it, but you have to know where to be. You have to understand all of the elements of his defense because he plays a lot of zone. And so even though you're a pass rusher, he does stunt at times. And these are things that Zadarius Smith should be quite familiar with. He's played in these kind of defenses before. So it's not going to be that big of an issue. I just thought it was funny how lackluster Vic seemed about it. But if we're just going by, I think you'll appreciate this sentiment. The whole back of the baseball card thing, like you are what you are. Zadarius Smith should be a pretty good addition, and I would think he'd be the number 3 at some point in this year, and who knows when it'll be, probably sooner than later. He'll be your a big part of your 3-man rotation. It's clear to me Vic likes a 3-man edge rotation, which is different from coordinators past. Jim Schwartz loved to play like 4, 5, 6 guys and keep them rotating both on the inside and outside. Vic rotates far less than other coordinators we've seen, and it's really just a 3-man rotation of Jaylen Hunt, Nolan Smith, and it was Uche with Ojulari inactive. we'll see if that's that kind of surprised me. Going back to the whole back of the baseball card thing, I know Ojulari didn't have a great camp, but his numbers are pretty consistent for, with his years with the Giants when healthy. Pretty good pass rusher. But again, maybe it's in this scheme he's not as been as effective. But Darius Smith will eventually get in there, and probably soon, maybe not, against the Chiefs, but we'll see week 3, week 4. I tend to think that, inclined to think, watching the tape and the game, that they'd like to see a little bit more, or they know that Jalen Hunt had a nice end of the year last year, but is really just a year 2 guy and still is new to position and not ready to just be a starter who's going to go out there and give you starting edge production that you need to be a really good defense.
We're talking to Geoff Mosher here from Inside the Birds and Philly Voice. And Jeff, keeping it with the defense here, we know what happened in the Super Bowl, the way they're able to dominate the Chiefs and the way they're able to get pressure. When you look at the first week performance and what they need to apply to the competition, obviously with the Chiefs this weekend, and let's all call it what it is, we have to put the context to Carter not being there for week 1 for the entire game. What do you think has to be better for them in week 2? The back end, that secondary, or that pressure up front? More, at least.
Well, probably the pressure up front. Now, they're going to be without Rashee Rice. He's suspended. Mm-hmm. And I haven't seen it officially, but I have a hard time thinking Xavier Worthy's going to be back if he has a dislocated shoulder. I think that was the diagnosis on him from the hit that he took. It was sort of a friendly fire thing from Kelsey on a crossing route where we ran into each other. So a Chiefs offense without Rashee Rice and without Xavier Worthy, I mean, now you're down to, I get it, Travis Kelce's still a guy who can make some plays, and Marquise Brown had 10 catches for 99 yards. When has ever a Chiefs receiver caught 10 passes and not even had 100 yards? So I think that's and this is a Chiefs team that was really trying this preseason and going into this year to try to get back to being a vertical offense. They really haven't had that. So, I mean, without those two guys, if Marquise Brown, who's not a bad receiver, but certainly not, not a guy that you like CeeDee Lamb, right? If that's their number one target out there, I think the secondary is not going to be, scared to death. So as long as you get a good pass rush and don't give Mahomes time to pick you apart and, find guys in the zone like Kelsey or Marquise Brown, then they should be all right. So I would say the pass rush it's got to be on them to get the job done.
And taking the other side of the ball for the last one here, Jeff, plenty of conversation about the passing offense, getting A.J. Brown involved. From your estimation, going back, looking back at that game for the Birds, what stuck out most about the passing offense from week 1?
Well, not one single ball outside of the 51-yarder to A.J. Brown traveled more than 9 yards in the air. I mean, that's not you're asking me what stuck out. I'm not saying that's a negative, a positive, or anything. I just think that's what stuck out. I think, obviously, if you're going to have that kind of game plan where everything is very short and fast and quick, you have to be decisive, and Jalen Hurts was. I know he had 4 incompletions, but 3 of them were on throwaway. So I think really only one, and one was a drop, if I'm not mistaken. I think there was only one ball Jalen Hurts threw that hit the ground that was, say, his fault. So that's pretty good. He was very, very efficient. But to the point in the question you're asking, they're not really built to play that way all the time. They're built to run the ball with Saquon Barkley, which they didn't do very well, and then hop a few of those down the field to A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. Usually we're good for 2, 3, or 4 of those a game. I would expect that was a little bit of an anomaly and that you will see that more, especially because the Chiefs are a little bit more aggressive defensively. The Cowboys played, if I'm not mistaken, Ray, I think they played zone on every single defensive snap. And if not every, it was over 90%. I don't think you'll see that from the Chiefs. They tend to be aggressive. Steve Spagnuolo likes to throw some bodies at you and man you up on the back end. So there should be some opportunities for AJ.
Yeah, and certainly a departure from the explosive play conversation that I feel like we've had on repeat for the entirety of the Sirianni tenure here, where they just want to generate explosives and make things happen.
Yeah, and you know the history. Like this has happened before, where AJ hasn't had a target or a big game, or same thing with Devontae. And then the next game, you see like almost a force feeding of the ball going that way. So I would not be surprised whatsoever if by the end of the first quarter on Sunday, if AJ Brown or Devontae or both each have a pretty big explosive play.
Sirianni loves to bring up week 1 in 2022 with the Lions, where Devontae didn't get anything. That's his go-to. If he has to go through an experience about talking about this, he's going to say, hey, remember 2022? So I'm sure that we're going to see that again, just like last year, the Panthers and the Steelers game. I think I'm on the same wavelength with you there. Geoff, always great to talk with you. Always great to have you. Appreciate you joining us today. We'll talk to you down the line.
Awesome, Ray. Have a great one. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, it's Ray Dunn from the Midday Show. Thank you so much for watching our content. If you want more videos, you can click right here. Or how about you subscribe right here so you stay in the know on all that's coming from 97.5 The Fanatic.